Here's Curly Tail in time. Zozos is just running up the score. He's 10 in front.
No catching. Rattle and roll.
They're close to home in its epicenter. Decisively in the Risen Star Stakes.
Courtland Simmons with you here at the CS Racing Report, and like Van Halen, we come to you in black and blue. It's the Louisiana Derby from the fairgrounds, a mile and 3/16, $1 million. 170 points available, going the Preakness route a half furlong further than your key 9 furlong preps for the Run for the Roses. And this is a race with two themes: confirmation of class and fulfilling promise with a splash. You got 3 horses in here that are very interesting that are going to try to qualify for the Derby with a first or second place finish. You got Zozos out of the Brad Cox barn, very, very impressive on the February the 11th at Oaklawn, winning by double digits. Curly Tail, who improved off of after a few so-so efforts to win an allowance at Oaklawn, registering a 92 Equibase. And then Capuna from Brett Calhoun's barn, who was second to probable Arkansas Derby starter, also out of the Cox barn, Cyberknife at the fairgrounds, going a route of ground. Looked good. He looked all out, but ran a pretty good race. You've got that in contrast, or in similar fashion, to some semi-proven horses. Pioneer Medina, 4th in the Risen Star. Galt, who of course fell or was tripped in the Fountain of Youth, a race in which Rattle and Roll ran a disastrous and nondescript 6th in. And so with those things being amongst the questions being posed, or the $1 million questions, will the horses that are somewhat proven be a little bit better served to suit the bettors, in addition to their conditioners and connections in this race, versus sort of what we call the new shooters in Zozos, Curly Tail, and Capuna? When you look at the pace scenario, I actually think, most people think Epicenter is just going to gun to the lead. He needs it. I think he has so many gears that he's the type of horse that can position himself without, using all of his reserves, and sort of say, hey, you guys can do some of the heavy lifting in the early going. That just gives me more firepower in the stretch. So I think there's going to be speed, and I think Zozos out of the 2 doesn't want to get hemmed in, even though he's a stalker. Interesting, but there is a lot of real estate, home stretch wise, for the closers to have an impact in this race. So, and we're going to see if Call Me Midnight, Curly Tail, Rattle and Roll can make up the deficit, or can actually technically be in a position to make up the ground, or not have as much of a deficit to have to make up on the front runner. I really like the new horses in here, hence that ties me into the picks. Zozos is a little bit light on speed figures. Curly Tail, it could be argued he's 2 points higher, but they're a little bit low compared to Call Me Midnight, who nipped Epicenter in the LeCompte, the first major prep at the fairgrounds for the Derby, and they're a little bit lower as well than the favorite Epicenter, who's along with Rattle and Roll, who, despite the Fountain of Youth, has the highest Equibase at the century mark, 100 right on the dot. So how do you, assess how you want to use certain numbers in here? I don't have completely all the answers. I'd like to think that I do, but in looking at the upset special, if you want to call it that, a mild one at best for a lot of you, it would be the 3, the 9, the 6, and the 2. Call Me Midnight, Rattle and Roll, and then the favorite Epicenter and the number 2, Zozos. You could go 3, 6, 9, 7 with Pioneer Medina, running a little bit better, finishing 4th though still. Will that get him in the Derby? That's the problem. Or 3, 6, 9, 8 with Galt getting filling out the super, or you could even use the 5 Capuna there. The other pick is, of course, the one a lot of you think will be the end result. Epicenter, number 6, the 2, the 7, and the 4. Epicenter, Zozos, Pioneer Medina, and the number 4, and that would be Curly Tail, or the number 9, Rattle and Roll. So 6-2, 7-4, 6-2, 7-9. You could go the opposite end somewhat, 6-2, 5-9, and then the 4. You could use the 4 on the end, once again, Curly Tail. That's a possible scenario with Capuna getting in 3rd. Would that get him into the Derby? That's the problem. And then the scenario that I think could happen, not saying it will, would be the 2, the 6, the 5, and the 7. Zozos, Epicenter, the 5, Capuna, and the number 7, Pioneer Medina, leaving Rattle and Roll and a couple of other promising horses off the Derby, out of the Derby picture. So the thing is when you look at the pace scenario, in addition to these picks. How do you think the race will unfold? You have the 6, the 2, and the 7. The 7 and the 8 actually could either be stalk and pouncers or they could press the pace. And I think that Zozos is going to come out of there, as will Epicenter. And I think that Pioneer Medina, to have an improved performance, I think he needs to pinch back. But they're all going to be right beside each other. The 6, the 7, and the 8. Epicenter, Pioneer Medina, and Galt. So I think there's going to be some speed. Zozos, who looked very professional in his last start at Oaklawn, looks like he could be the relaxed one, although I think the same of Epicenter. I think if he gets to the Derby, I think he's the kind of horse that really doesn't absolutely need the lead. So those things we're going to learn a little bit about in this Louisiana Derby, but those are the picks that, or the numbers that I think are going to be useful in this Louisiana $1 million Derby at the fairgrounds. We're certainly going to recap it on the road to the Kentucky Oaks and the Kentucky Derby right here at the CS Racing Report.